Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced that the country is pulling out of the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The Arms Control Treaty is widely considered one of the most important pacts between the U.S. and Russia.
Russia's violation puts millions of Europeans and Americans at greater risk. It aims to put the United States at a military disadvantage, and it undercuts the chances of moving our bilateral relationship in a better direction. It's our duty to respond appropriately. The United States will therefore suspend its obligations under the INF Treaty effective February 2nd. We will provide Russia and the other treaty parties with formal notice that the United States is withdrawing from the INF Treaty, effective in 6 months, pursuant to Article 15 of the treaty.
Pompeo accused Russia of violating the treaty, citing the range of a new Russian cruise missile. Russia denies any violation. Once the U.S. formally notifies Russia, the pact will expire in 6 months unless negotiations can salvage the agreement. The INF Treaty was signed in 1987 by U.S. President Ronald Reagan and Soviet Union leader Mikhail Gorbachev. It prohibits the possession, production, and flight testing of ground-launched intermediate-range ballistic and cruise missiles. Nearly 2,700 missiles were eliminated on both sides, easing tensions and contributing to the end of the Cold War. Over the past 5 years, the U.S. has been calling on Moscow to comply with the pact, but officials have failed to bridge their differences. Moscow has said the U.S. is making the accusations as an excuse to pull out. Russia has yet to comment on Washington's decision, but is expected to respond sharply.
Quote, China has the ability to launch cyber attacks that cause localized, temporary disruptive effects on American critical infrastructure, such as disruption of a natural gas pipeline for days to weeks in the United States. And it's not just China. Go to page 6. Quote, Russia has the ability to execute cyber attacks in the United States that generate localized, temporary disruptive effects on critical infrastructure, such as disrupting an electrical distribution network for at least a few hours. So China could shut off the natural gas pipelines. Russia can just shut off the electricity. They have that ability now. There have been rumblings for a while that hostile foreign government hackers had burrowed their way into American critical infrastructure, and particularly the power networks. The Wall Street Journal has done the best reporting on this front in the country, laying out exactly how that scenario could play out here, how foreign countries have been laying the groundwork to one day flip the off switch on an entire swath of the U.S. power grid if they want to. But this new report from the intelligence chiefs rings a whole new kind of alarm bell. This is no longer just a thing that they might be planning for, that could conceivably happen one day. This is the director of national intelligence telling us all in unclassified form, in black and white, China and Russia can do this today, now, whenever they want to. In other words, we're relying on their good graces that they're not. And it is like negative 50 degrees in the Dakotas right now. What would happen if Russia killed the power in Fargo today? Right? What would happen if all the natural gas lines that service Sioux Falls just poofed on the coldest day in recent memory, and it wasn't in our power whether or not to turn them back on? I mean, what would you do if you lost heat indefinitely as the act of a foreign power on the same day the temperature in your front yard matched the temperature in Antarctica? I mean, what would you and your family do?